So, what actually made you choose to become an athlete?
Well, Sachin, I ran for chocolates at the age of 8. There used to be a coach called Mohinder Singh Gill, and he would bribe us for, those 10 paisa sweets, the nutrient sweets for every lap you ran. And I landed up collecting the most number of sweets. And then the journey began. So that's how I took it up.
Hello and welcome to Career Central, the podcast where we demystify interesting careers. I'm your host Sachin Ramurthy, and this week we will be talking with former Olympian Ashwini Nachappa. You probably already know who an athlete is. They're people involved in sports who take part in competitions. Some renowned sports competitions are the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games, and the Asian Games. This is a career that requires a lot of dedication and is not easy to reach the pinnacle of a particular sport. This means that in order to become an athlete, you must be completely devoted to this dream and be passionate about the field. Being an athlete is a lot of hard work, and only the best of the best can make it. The only way you can succeed is by following the mantra, practice, practice, practice. Approach the sports association in your area and start participating in tournaments. If you do well, you will advance to the next phase and eventually represent India as a professional athlete. Today, we have Ms. Ashwini Nachappa with us. Ms. Nachappa is an accomplished former athlete and also a film actress. She gained fame around the start of the 1980s when she outran PT Usha on 2 separate occasions. She's also been referred to as India's FloJo. In 1988, she received the Arjuna Award for Excellence in Sports. Ms. Nachappa was at the pinnacle of Indian athletics when she retired in 1991. We are extremely honored to have her with us on the show today. Without further ado, let's get into the first question. What exactly does being an athlete entail?
Well, it's difficult to answer that because for each one it's different, and for me it just happened by chance. But to be a professional athlete at any given sport, I think there is no substitute for the kind of hard work and involvement and a sense of pride in what we do.
Yeah.
But for that, I think it takes a lot of sacrifices, it takes a lot of guts and a lot of self-motivation to have a sustained program to achieve that.
So, why do you think it is that athletics is not as popular as some other sports in schools? In India especially.
Athletics is the mother of all sport. It's strange today when you go to a golf course and you see at the driving range 4 or 5-year-old kids who have no coordination but will be with a golf stick.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of education for the overall coordination, eye-hand movement comes only through play and agility process that happens at a young age. It's like the Montessori where kids are allowed to play in the sand, get their hands marky and, do all kinds of things. So it's important for young children to develop that. And then you can take up any sport. And I wish parents realize that rather than just putting them at the age of 4 and 5 just to, hit a few balls.
Correct.
So it's important for everybody at an early age to start with athletics. Athletics, I mean, a sport running, some physical activity which brings in eye-hand coordination.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So, say a lot of students would dream about becoming a professional athlete. So, once you decide to become a professional athlete, how do you actually go about accomplishing this dream?
Well, I think, in hindsight, when I look at my journey, I think for every child, encouragement begins at home. And that dream has to be part of what you have discussed with your parents. And because unless that kind of, whether you want to be a musician, you want to be an actor, you want to be a sports star, it just depends. You've got to have that kind of family support to pull you through that.
Yeah.
And No dream is achieved overnight. It's a long journey. It's a process. And for the big dream to be achieved, there are many small steps that everybody has to take. And every step involves a lot of dedication, a lot of involvement, a lot of hard work, and complete focus. So you may, I personally feel that for everybody who has achieved something in life, it's not just luck. Luck is only when opportunities meet preparation. It falls in your lap, and then that becomes something great. Mm-hmm. But for that, preparation should be continuous. And to have that kind of energy, the positive mindset, you need a lot of encouragement and the support externally to achieve that.
So this next one is a bit of an unorthodox question, but typically a doctor or engineer works till their 60s maybe. And players of sports such as tennis and cricket play up to maybe 40. But the career cycle of athletes is much lesser. So what do most athletes do once they retire, typically in their 20s or 30s?
Unfortunately, in India, we haven't come to a stage where we can take up sport as a profession, barring to an extent cricket and to a certain extent tennis. It is, developing. We are becoming a sporting nation slowly. There are many things that's happening because it's a large country with a large population. Yeah. And sport is not a priority. Food, hygiene, healthcare is a priority today. But I think that culture, which we had in our school days, I somehow feel is lost in today's educational world. Most school administrators are not really looking at sports to develop their child. It's not about winning medals. It's about the overall development, playing together, games together. Mm-hmm. So these kind of activities bring a lot of team spirit, fellowship, togetherness, competition. So that is lacking, I feel. We need to change that, revive that. And for athletes, it just depends which event you are in. As a chess player, you can go on for years. As a shooter, you can go on for past 40. But for athletics, if you're a sprinter, then you are a very short span. Yeah. And if you're a distance runner, maybe a little more. If you're a thrower, a little more. So it just depends on the event. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say that in India we are at a stage where we can take up sport as a profession, and that's why I say education is important and should go hand in glove, because you need to have something to do beyond sport.
So how is the current infrastructure for training in athletics in India outside of the metros?
Not so good. Not so good. We are such a city-centric community. We want everything within the city. But my personal experience, having gone around many of the rural areas, and I think the hunger, drive, and the self-motivation you can see is among our rural kids. Unfortunately, whether it's our politicians or our administrators, are really not focusing that much on developing. It's not just about sport, it's about hospitals, it's about education. Really in rural India, not many villages or districts have the kind of infrastructure that is required for basic living. Yeah. So sport is a far cry.
So a lot of people only see one side of athletes, that is when they're, say, running a race, for example. So what do athletes actually do outside of their training and competition?
They relax, they enjoy music, they watch movies. They're just like anybody else. Yeah. But they're not from any other space. They're very much human. So we do exactly what y'all do.
So could you please elaborate on the process that one goes through when they realize that they have athletic potential?
In order to further anybody's dream, and I think it's important to have a self-check and a check on where exactly you stand in, in the particular area of work that you are doing. Now, for example, in sport, if I have to do sport and I'm good at the school level, I have to make an attempt to see where I stand at the junior national level.
Yeah.
And then, as I said, every step is important. And then you have to realize, and your support system has to sit down together and realize whether you are on the right path before you are about 16, 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is no looking back if you've chosen it. Then you go the distance.
Okay.
At any cost.
Yeah.
Because everybody has to take a certain amount of risk in their lives. And sport is one such thing. If you have an injury, you may lose out a year or you may lose out a career in athletics. Mm-hmm. Right? So, but if you have the potential, you should not give it up. And I think you should go the full distance and then evaluate your own graph of performance and see where you stand, and then take a call as to whether you should move forward or take other avenues, move into other avenues.
So, suppose Prime Minister Modi were to give Team India an aggressive target of winning 5 gold medals in athletics in the 2024 Olympic Games. Would that be an achievable target, and how would you go about getting it?
Well, he's already given a target for 2024. And 5 medals is achievable, because today it's if you've seen the sporting scenario in the country at the Olympic Games or at the World Championships, we are almost there in certain sport. Take for archery, take for shooting, take for equestrian, take for athletics to a certain extent. I wouldn't say a medal winning performance as yet. But yes, we are being noticed at the junior world level. But what it takes beyond that in athletics, will take a sustained program. But yes, the government and the ministry, especially the government of the day, has given targets, is working. If you see the Khelo India program, it's not just about achieving medals at the Olympic level, but for grassroots development. The Khelo India program is one such. It's just taken kind of root. So let's see how it all depends on which government comes, what happens. Unfortunately, that's the way it is in India. But it's a good program to start with.
So what actually made you choose to become an athlete?
Well, Sachin, I ran for chocolates at the age of 8. My mother would not let my sister and I play on the streets after school. So we were a bunch of school kids who would go to the stadium at the age of 8 or 9 and then watch everybody run. My sister would read the Amar Chitra Kathas in one corner of the stadium, and about 5, 6 of us, there used to be a coach called Mohinder Singh Gill, and he would bribe us for, those 10 paisa sweets, the nutrient sweets for every lap you ran. And I landed up collecting the most number of sweets. And then the journey began. So that's how I took it up.
That's really interesting journey.
So the sweets became medals, medals became awards, and that's how the journey was.
Wow, okay. So was being an athlete what you initially thought you would be?
Not really. My mother always said, Ashwini means a horse, it also means a star. So probably the horse was meant to run. I don't know.
Okay. So at any point of time during your career, have you ever felt like you made the wrong choice in terms of your career path?
Never. Never. I don't believe in ifs and buts in life. And I think we should be very aware of that, especially young children. It's easy to say, if I did that, it's the reality. Yeah. I enjoyed what I was doing. I've been fortunate that I've been achieving some amount of success, whether in school, college, the national juniors, and then the seniors. So really, the process has been good. Of course, every failure brings about different challenges, and failures is part of our journey, and how we handle it is important. But no regrets. Whether I did the movies, whether I got into sport, there's been no regret. Everything has been an experience.
Great.
And that's what shaped me.
Awesome. So now we have the final question. What is your message or advice to students who are considering a career as a sports person?
I would, my advice to young athletes would be to have that drive and the fire in the belly to achieve a dream that you know is achievable. And once you've given it a shot with 100% of hard work and dedication to achieve that, you may not achieve it. It doesn't matter. But the satisfaction of giving that 100% in what you've done should be far more important. And be sensitive to the learnings from it. And then you evaluate your next step and your next goal and see if it's achievable. So there is, as I said in the beginning, there is no substitute to that hard work and dedication. And of course, the encouragement that comes from the support system.
So thank you so much for coming on the show, Ms. Nachappa. It was truly a privilege and a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Sachin. It's been a pleasure. Best wishes to all of you.
Well, that's it for today, everybody. But be sure to follow us on iTunes and Facebook. Watch short and interesting clips of the podcast on YouTube and visit www.indianstudentroom.com for more. See you next time when we interview an ecologically sustainable and compassionate lifestyle advocate.